A pleasant good morning to everyone. I am Umar Muhammad, Caleb Sunan disciple, Neville Angelo Scott, Olaiwala Ombokinda Rishakonola, Mugdal Second Sengeb, and I am transmitting to you from East Dry River, Laventille. I am on social media this morning because of what I heard yesterday on Beyond the Tape. Superintendent Alexander, greetings to you and Marlon. It's a show that I love to look at. I try not to miss it. But Superintendent Alexander was talking about an incident which happened concerning an elderly person. That elderly person wanted to go to the toilet, according to the story, and before that elderly person could reach the toilet or the washroom, that elderly person urinated on himself. He was approached by the people who worked in the place. I think it's a food place here. He was approached by the employees or an employee, and he was treated in a very aggressive way, humiliating way. And according to Mr. Roger Alexander, he looked at the scene and intervened and helped the old man, and what he did was to call the employee, and spoke to her about it, and made peace with everything, and the employee apologized to the elderly person. Now, I want to extend on that. To live to an elderly age is a blessing. But it is a blessing mostly for the younger ones. Because I remember in my days when I was younger, we used to respect old people. We looked at old people as a history book. And by so doing, we should like to ask them questions, seek knowledge from them. But there's a difference. I'm speaking from practical experience because my sister and myself, we celebrated 74 years of age on, that was Monday gone here, Indian Arrival Day. The 30th of May 2022, we celebrated 74 years of age. My sister and myself, we are both twins. And I know what it is to be an elderly person. I have seen elderly people in this place being scorned, abandoned, and so on. Well, I don't intend to be in that position. I'm trying to hold on as much as possible to my age. As you see, I try to be a little muscular here, do some exercise. I'm a vegetarian, and many things I don't eat and drink, and I like to be spiritual. I like music, but not any kind of music. And, I like to be quiet and cool and out of trouble and, looking at life in a more objective way, right? In a more optimistic way, and trying to overstand and understand life in many different ways. But as usual, we all have our faults. But the thing about it is to make the balance so that you won't go too far right and too far left. You won't be a fanatic in one way and you won't be a dropped out in the next way. A drop out of that balance. So elderly people in this nation has a lot to put up. Elderly people have a lot to put up with. In the first case, having washroom in the city or in other places for elderly persons should be a must. I remember I went to Flow to make my payment roughly about 2 or 3 years ago, yeah. And I myself felt that I wanted to go to the washroom. I asked for the washroom. I was told there isn't any washroom in here. Well, the nearest one you can go to is Subway across the road, Independence Square. I was annoyed. I left and I hurried across there. But, you know, whenever you reach a certain age, your immune system breaking down and, you're not as strong and you cannot keep in things as how we used to do it. So the urine came down. As I was going across, Brown Promenade, it came down. Luckily for me, I have on a dark colored pants, so it couldn't show up. So I stood up there and I was annoyed and let it dry out. I remember short pants, daughter sang a calypso, concerning that same thing when a woman in a bank wanted to go to the washroom and she asked them if she could do it right there. You see, facilities for elderly people in town and in other areas should be a must. For example, if you have to go to the toilet in town, Independence Square, Woodford Square, wherever it is, I don't think you should have to pay. I think you should go with your ID card, like how you go into the bus. And I think there should be locations in the city and other places in where people, especially elderly people, could easily go and get rid of their waste. It should be in such a position so that the person could step in easily and step out. On Carnival they have these BB truck. It should be something like that, but not to step up, because remember these elderly persons, some of them going up steps have to go up slowly, have to take their time before they fall down. So something should be erected in such a way, or should be built in such a way, so that it's easy to enter, easy to come out. Sorry. But you see, we need that kind of facility for elderly people, especially an elderly woman. Because I have seen something which I don't like. Superintendent Roger Alexander spoke about the elderly man. But let's ask some questions. That elderly man is a father, a grandfather, and maybe a great-grandfather. Yeah. Who accompanies him to the city? Which you can expect anything to happen, because there are all kinds of people in the city, and there were certain kind of people, as the youths especially, who go to the city, especially on month end or whenever they know that the old people are getting their money, to rob them. Where is his family? Son, daughter, grandchildren. And many of these elderly people come to the city by themselves. You have to wonder, an old man like that, urinating on himself, has he a son, a daughter, a granddaughter? Probably if he has a wife, a younger woman. Or maybe somebody with him, some family, some friend. These old people wonder about the city, spending money, and sometimes some of them are very forgetful. They are sick. And people can take advantage of them. I know of elderly people in this area, but they are well respected, including myself. But I've seen something, not only in this area, but in other places, where young people have their motor vehicles, their cars, and what have you, and they do not allow their mother or father to be in the car. They drive along up and down with their girlfriend, friends, whatever it is, and their mother and father walking. I've seen that. Sometimes their mother and father could scarcely walk. So I want to know what kind of trend is that? That the young people don't want to walk the road with their father and mother or their elderly family, be it uncle or whatever it is, grandfather. It seems as though it's not right to do so. It's a sin to do so. Because these elderly people in the city, right, they have their sons and grandsons and daughters. It is hurtful to see them wandering about by themselves, and sometimes their children, their grandchildren, their family in town. And they must remember that they will get older too. And remember, some of them who are young now, when they get old in older times, who knows what kind of world we will be living in? It could be a worse, it could be better, whatever it is. So I am annoyed about that. That old man hmm, could have had a friend or something. I am 74 years old, and I have seen, I don't call myself elderly in a sense, because I try to keep myself from that elderly thing, as I've said before, because this elderly thing is a thing, it's very challenging today. Honor thy father and thy mother. But you can tell me the younger people don't have time. You must have time for elderly people. You came from them and you are ignoring them now. And you will have children to come from you, and you wouldn't like them to ignore you in the future. What goes around that comes around. So, what I have to say is, youths, younger people, pay attention. If you see a father going out, because they need to walk, they need to stretch their feet, they need to go about. You can't have them locked up in the home like that all the time, and sometimes you leave them there alone. Anything happen? That's it. Once a man, twice a child. They need to get that attention. Older people, take care of yourself. See as much exercise you can do. Be careful of what you're eating, because once a man, twice a child, you cannot be eating some of those soft drinks and all them meat and all them hard food. Eat and drink things that it is easy for you to digest. Because you're a child again. You see, when a baby is growing up, you don't give it dashing and yam and thing. You give it little touch by little touch, and you make sure you give it food that is digestible, because it's a baby. And you are returning to be a baby physically, but spiritually you should be more upward, right? And that is why I don't like to see elderly people themselves to playing the fool and want to get on and play the young and all that kind of thing. Live your age, right? So I am hoping, because I myself have seen people in town blinded to elderly people and otherwise, and I have to go to them and cross them over the road and watch them good and make sure everything is okay. An elderly man told me at one time, he said a young girl came and tried to escort him around town. And the end result of it, she wanted his money, so she robbed him, she took his money. So there are youths or people going around in the city taking advantage of these elderly people, right? So I am saying that we should have facilities in such a way so that to make it easier for the elderly people. I myself have gone into town and I want to pass urine, and I walk with a bottle and I tell a man, I say, hey, he say we don't allow people to come in here to pass me urine. I know it is, because when it's stained, it smells and there's a car park. So I went in a corner when nobody can see. He said, what are you doing there? I said, excuse me, Mr. I have a bottle. He said, okay. And I have a bottle broad enough for me to, and I cork it back. When I reach, I throw it in the garbage bin. So we have to find ways and means how to ease ourselves. Because sometimes you go into some of these places and not just that, people say, well, okay, there is the washroom, go ahead. And when you go ahead, somebody inside here, again, as an elderly person, you can't hold it in too long. Come down. So, my people have a good day. Umar Muhammad, Khalid disciple. I hope that things will work out because time flies fast, very fast, right? And 74, the next thing you know, by the will of the Most High and hoping that things will work out. And I want to live to middle age. My middle age is 100 and I want to double that. So I only have a good day. Everybody have a good day. Thanks for listening to me.